Okay, we'll call our meeting to order. This is meeting number 91, and we're here to talk about the Bill S5, an act to amend the Tobacco Act and Non-Smokers Health Act. Certainly welcome the Honorable Jeanette Petitpas-Taylor, Minister of Health. And as additional witnesses, we have Simon Kennedy, Deputy Minister, James Van Loon, Director General, Tobacco Control Directorate, Denise Chenier, Director, Tobacco Products Regulatory Office. Now, we have a short time with the Minister, and I want to try to make sure everybody gets a chance to have their opportunity to have a question. So I am going to hold everybody to the time limits, which I usually don't do, but I'm going to hold them to the time limits, answers and questions. So I'm going to hold this little red card up when you've got 30 seconds left to go, and then we're going to end at the time limit. Mr. McKinnon and Dr. Ayalson have agreed to limit their 7-minute times to 5 minutes so that Mr. Ayub can have 4 minutes at the end. So we're going to start our 7-minute rounds with 5-minute questions. Starting with Mr. McKinnon, 5 minutes. And first of all, we have opening statements. I'm sorry. And I'm not sure who's going to make an opening statement. Minister? Okay. Fire away. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and once again I'd like to thank the committee members for having invited me here this evening. I'm very pleased that you guys are studying this piece of legislation, as it's extremely important, so thank you so much for your hard work. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to allow me to be here this evening to speak about Bill S5. I want to begin by thanking the committee member for the work it has done to help shape this bill.
Your report entitled Vaping Towards a Regulatory Framework for E-Cigarettes shows how necessary it is to protect young people against the danger of nicotine addiction while allowing adult smokers to have access to vaping products as a less harmful source of nicotine. Bill S5 addresses the recommendations in this report. Your efforts have informed important sections of this bill. Colleagues, the need to update existing tobacco legislation is clear. As you know, smoking remains a major health issue here in Canada. Despite decades of progress, illnesses linked to smoking kill 45,000 Canadians every year, which means one person every 12 minutes. These statistics are disquieting, and as Minister of Health, I find them unacceptable. This is why our government is working at reducing the level of tobacco dependence in Canada from 25% in 2015 to less than 5% in 2035.
Recognize that tobacco use in Canada is changing. Vaping products like e-cigarettes are becoming more popular. From a public health perspective, we believe this poses both challenges and opportunities. Bill S5 strikes the right balance between protecting Canadians and leveraging the potential benefits of vaping products. It also addresses an important need by establishing a new legislative framework for the regulations of these products. This bill is a key element of the government's broader tobacco control agenda, which includes taking further action to ban menthol in tobacco products, implementing plain packaging requirements for tobacco products, and finally modernizing Canada's approach to tobacco control.
Since it was tabled, Bill S5 has been thoroughly reviewed and has been amended. Last spring, the Senate Committee on Social Affairs, Science and Technology undertook a rigorous study of the bill. It heard from 22 witnesses representing 15 organizations. Witnesses included consumer advocates, tobacco and vaping industry representatives, public health experts, academics, and government officials. Their valuable feedback informed many of the recent amendments to the bill before you today.
vaping is a less harmful alternative to smoking. I have heard from Canadians who believe that the vaping helped them quit smoking. Nevertheless, we must be cautious. There are risks to consider. Stakeholders have told us that they worry about how vaping products could affect young people. I want you to know that we share their concerns. We must ensure that the availability and prevalence of vaping products do not induce young people and non-smokers to develop nicotine addictions, which could lead them to start smoking. That is why Bill S5 would prohibit the sale of vaping products to youth under the age of 18, in line with the current minimum age of tobacco sales. Protecting youth from the dangers of nicotine addiction is a top priority of mine. I share some of the concerns expressed by the Quebec Coalition for Tobacco Control and others, especially regarding lifestyle promotion. We do not allow lifestyle promotion of tobacco products, and we do not intend to allow it for cannabis products. To protect youth and non-smoking Canadians, I intend to support an amendment that would prohibit all lifestyle promotion of vaping products. That said, I understand the potential of vaping products as a harm reduction tool. Marketing based solely on factual information will be allowed with restrictions. For example, there are concerns that certain flavors could potentially make vaping products more appealing to young people. We recognize that some adults prefer flavored vaping products, but we also know that certain flavors could attract youth to vaping, something that we absolutely want to avoid. For this reason, Bill S5 restricts the marketing and promotion of flavors such as candy, which would be appealing to youth. We have already taken significant action when it comes to flavored tobacco by expanding the ban on menthol to cover 95% of all tobacco products. Bill S5 was amended to go even further, to ban the use of menthol and clove in all tobacco products. We believe these measures will help protect Canadian youth from the serious, long-term health effects of nicotine addiction and tobacco use. Comme je l'ai mentionné plus tôt, le projet de loi S5.
As I mentioned earlier, Bill S5 is helping us advance in our goal of making having neutral or plain packaging for tobacco products. Because of measures brought in by the Government of Canada, the capacity of the tobacco industry to recruit new smokers, especially among the young, through advertising and the promotion of tobacco products has greatly decreased. Packaging is one of the last remaining channels for such promotion. Research shows that promotion through tobacco packages and product design is particularly effective with adolescents and young adults. When there are logos, textures, and brand names, it has enormous influence on young people, and it helps to make them loyal to a brand. Conversely, it has been proven that plain packaging decreases the attraction of tobacco products, especially among the young. 82% of daily adult smokers over the age of 25 smoked their first cigarette before the age of 18. And that's why, around the world, leaders in tobacco control are moving toward plain and standardized packaging for tobacco products. I think we can all agree that tobacco companies should not be able to use packaging to make a harmful product appealing. It's very important that this bill be passed in order that Canada, too, can implement these important and effective tobacco control measures.
A well-researched and balanced piece of legislation. It aims to protect young Canadians from developing nicotine addictions and from using tobacco. At the same time, it would allow adults to legally access vaping products as a less harmful alternative to tobacco. In addition, this legislation supports our government's efforts to implement plain and standardized packaging of tobacco products. Bill S5 reflects the considered opinions of many stakeholders, including public health experts, industry representatives, consumer advocates, and academics. The results of this strong piece of legislation that will allow us to regulate the growing market for vaping products and advance the tobacco control agenda. Thank you so much for your attention here this evening, and I'd be absolutely pleased to take your questions.
Well, I suspect you'll get some. So we'll start off with Mr. McKinnon with 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Minister, for joining us here today. And thank you for this bill. It's a great bill. So as you mentioned in your remarks, and we've heard from many witnesses some concern about the prohibition on the promotion of flavors for vaping products. And you mentioned this in your remarks as something that was, we want to be strong about is prohibiting these flavors. Could you explain more why this measure is important?
Yes, thank you so much for the question. When we look at the objectives of Bill S5, really it's twofold. First of all, as Health Minister, my first priority is to protect the health and safety of our youth. And that's really moving forward one of the main objectives of this bill. But the other objective, as well, that I would say, is also to seize the opportunity. We recognize that there are several tobacco smokers right now that are wanting to switch from using tobacco to transferring to vaping products. And we absolutely can see that there can be some benefits to that as well. So moving forward, we certainly recognize that we don't want to allow young people to be encouraged to use vaping products. So that's why that moving forward, we certainly want to ensure that there's strict regulations that are in place with respect to marketing and promotion, because we don't want them to be enticed to that at all. But on the other end of the spectrum as well, we also recognize that flavored products for some Canadians can certainly help them in order to kick the habit of smoking and use vaping as an alternative option there. With respect to going back to the youth as well, we absolutely want to make sure that any flavors that are going to be available, when we talk about the names that will be used for the flavors, the actual names of the flavors, once again, should not be appealing to youth in any way. So I'll just give an example. I think all kids like cotton candy, and probably several adults like cotton candy. But we certainly want to make sure that those types of names won't be used for the flavors of the product, because, again, that name would be appealing to children. So with respect to the adult population, we certainly want to make sure that they have access to the flavors. But once again, we certainly need to make sure that we strike that balance, that we allow it for adult consumers, but in no way is it going to be appealing to our youth.
Thank you, Minister. We've also heard from a number of witnesses the claim that vaping products are safer than tobacco products, and you mentioned that as well in your remarks. I'm wondering, how do we know this? How do we know that vaping products are, in fact, less harmful than tobacco products?
Well, thank you again for the very important question. I guess to answer that, I would first of all say that the research is very clear when it comes to tobacco. We know that tobacco kills Canadians. When we look at our annual statistics, we know that we lose 45,000 Canadians per year as a result of tobacco. So as I said in my remarks, if we break that down, that's 1 Canadian every 12 minutes that dies as a result of tobacco within this country. So we certainly recognize that it's an extreme risk, and that the research is there. Research shows that vaping products are less harmful than tobacco, but with that being said, it doesn't mean that it is without risks. So we recognize that if we look at the two substances, that we have one that is perhaps less harmful than the other. So when we look at harm reduction types of mechanisms, we certainly recognize that vaping products can absolutely be a safer alternative than smoking tobacco.
Great. Thank you, Minister. Chair, those are my questions.
Now we'll go to Ms. Finlay, 7 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Minister, thank you for appearing here. I'm very pleased to hear that you're open to amendments, recognizing that there are alternatives to smoking, that smokers who do want to quit may need some help, may need some adjustment. So I'm pleased to hear that you're willing to accommodate amendments that will allow this to be known, because as the bill stands now, a smoker who would want to look for alternative products, alternative nicotine products, would have no way of finding out about them because there's no advertising allowed to them, presumably to their doctors or even to smoking cessation clinics, which I think you'd agree would not be in the best interests of public health. Would you agree?
Pardon me?
If people didn't know about these alternative products, that would not be in the best interest of public health. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm.
So there are products, we've discussed vaping here today. There are other products that can help that have been proven very popular in the world. In fact, in Japan, non-combustibles, in less than 2 years, took over 10% of the market for smokers. They're expected to hit almost 20% of the market of smokers by the end of this year. Now, these products have been demonstrated to be far less harmful to smokers than cigarettes, and yet this bill doesn't recognize them and would lump them in with cigarettes, and therefore they would not allowed to be advertised either. How do you square that with the public health issue that these and safety issues that these products could provide?
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Finley, for your question. With respect to the combustibles, we've made it very clear that tobacco products are tobacco products. The research is very clear that tobacco is very dangerous and kills Canadians. So with respect to this piece of legislation that we're bringing forward, we are proposing the same types of requirements for all tobacco products. With respect to the information that will be available to Canadians with respect to alternatives, we certainly want to make sure that that information is based on science, and we certainly want to make sure that if there's appropriate information that's available to be provided to Canadians, we absolutely want to make sure that that is going to be allowed. However, it has to be based on science. We've made a recommendation that if there's any informational type of material that is available, that Health Canada will certainly look at the information and then from there make the best decision to ensure that that information is factual, based on science, and then from there that would be provided to Canadians.
Would studies from other countries be acceptable?
We would certainly look at studies. However, we have to also make sure that those studies are not being sponsored by any type of manufacturer, to make sure that it's based on science and not by being influenced by industry.
Well, we heard on Monday, there were allegations that some of the research was funded, and this committee was led to believe that some of the research had been funded by quote-unquote big tobacco, when in fact the people who'd done the research said flatly they had not been. So you need to do the research on that as well to make sure that you're not being led down the garden path in terms of a bias there, because as a smoker, I'd like to know what alternatives are available, but this bill won't let me find out. Another question for you. Are you familiar with the tobacco contraband market at all?
Yes, I am.
You're aware of the size and who benefits from that?
I'm not familiar of all the details, but I'm certainly aware of the contraband market.
It is huge in this country. It's across border with the United States business. A lot of the money either comes from or goes to finance or is laundered because of illegal activities, things like human trafficking, things like the drug trade, arms trade with really, really nasty people. By going to plain packaging, it will be much easier for these actors to present counterfeit or contraband cigarettes. These can be filled with all sorts of nasty chemicals, used animal parts, things that even a smoker shouldn't have to tolerate. And I'm wondering how you think that that will be in the best interest of the smokers, but also the harm that will come from that if organized crime is allowed to expand as this bill would allow them to do.
Well, once again, Ms. Finley, thank you for your question. And the area of contraband has certainly been researched and has been looked at, and there is no evidence that shows that there's a link between plain packaging cigarette and the increase of the contraband market at all. We have looked at research that's been conducted in the Australia area, as they've done significant research in this area, and really our bill is very much based on the work that they've done in that country. And once again, through their research, they've seen no link that plain packaging has increased the contraband market. We Our government has made investments with respect to RCMP, public safety, and also Canadian Border Control to ensure, or Canadian Border Services, sorry, to ensure that they have access to the tools and the people that they need to conduct the investigations in this area. But when we look at the research that we've seen, there is no link between plain packaging and increase in contraband.
Minister, we were presented with a report on Monday that said, in fact, the contraband rate in Australia had gone up by close to 20%, an estimated 20 to 25% after plain packaging was introduced there. And it only stands to reason that when there is no differentiation, as a consumer, I have no idea which product I'm buying. And if you go to the plain sticks, I have no way of knowing what the product is, and law enforcement will have no visible way of recognizing whether these are legitimate products or whether they're illicit.
Once again, information that we've received from the Australian government has made it very clear that they have seen no link between the plain packaging of cigarettes in the area of contraband. That is the information that we've been advised of.
I'll be happy to provide you with that further information. But meanwhile, could you answer me how, as a consumer, I'm going to know whether I'm getting a legitimate product, and how my law enforcement agencies in my area, which is rife with illicit tobacco products, how our law enforcement agencies can identify these visibly?
Well, first and foremost, when purchasing illegal tobacco products in Canada, we also recognize that there's a tax stamp that's on the product, and all of the measures that are in place when you're buying those products through legitimate areas go through the process. And those markings are very clear on the products when you purchase tobacco products in Canada legally.
No, time's up. And Mr. Davies, 7 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister, for being here. Minister, I want to congratulate you on bringing this legislation in. I think it's overdue. I would have wished that you brought it in sooner, because we all know that every day we wait, thousands of young Canadians try smoking, and many of them become addicted. And we know that 50%, I think is the statistic we heard, of people who start smoking will eventually die of a tobacco-related illness. So every day that we wait is a day that more Canadians are going to die, ultimately, of this highly addictive product. Now, my question to you, as Health Minister, and we're the Health Committee, do you agree that nicotine is highly addictive?
Yes.
Do you also agree that nicotine, in whatever form that it's marketed, is something that, as a Health Minister, we should be taking every step we can to discourage Canadians from using?
Yes.
Yeah. And, of course, we all know that nicotine itself is highly addictive. So once people start, no matter how it's ingested, it's very difficult to quit. So I'm glad to hear that you have seen one of the major flaws in this bill. We heard testimony on Monday from a variety of groups that spoke to the promotion and advertising of vaping products. Now, we all know that vaping is it's a purer form of nicotine delivery. But as you just acknowledged, and I think you're right, we don't want Canadians to become addicted to nicotine. So the value of the vaping that we heard at this committee in testimony was that it's probably 95% estimated safer than tobacco ingestion. And it's very useful and promising, perhaps, as a harm reduction method, a smoking cessation tool for smokers. So my question then to you is, why did this legislation come forward almost 3 years after it was promised, with provisions that would allow tobacco companies to market vaping with promotions, with advertising, to use billboards, television, radio, internet, video games, newspapers, corner store windows, bars, text messages, social media. They could use contests, trips, draws, tickets to concerts, sporting events, which are all directed at people who don't smoke, therefore leading them to be more likely to pick up the habit of vaping and ingesting nicotine. Is it those provisions of this bill that you in your opening statement said we should amend?
Absolutely. Again, as Health Minister, a big my responsibility is the health and safety of Canadians, and my specific priority when I look at Bill S5 is also, I've got to say that I've got a bias with respect to youth. I really want to make sure that we keep these products out of the hands of our youth, and we also want to prevent our Canadians and our young people from being addicted to nicotine. You're absolutely right. So in moving forward, we've been working very hard to ensure that this bill gets through the Senate and also the House to ensure that we can get this to fruition. With respect to the area of the amendments that I've indicated in my opening statements that I absolutely welcome an amendment to is the area of lifestyle promotion. I in no way feel that that should be allowed in the public sphere. We recognize that we need to limit that, and as a result, because we certainly want to ensure that Canadians are not going to be enticed to start smoking, either our youth or also our adults that aren't smokers now.
I was going to get to that too, because these are all advertising that could be directed at people in bars. So one of the suggestions we heard was that if it's really our goal to use e-cigarettes and vaping as a smoking cessation tool directed at smokers and not at the general public to encourage them to pick up nicotine, the suggestion was to keep the advertising to the cigarette package so that you're delivering the direct message to the smoker every time they buy a pack of cigarettes, while eliminating the possibility that vaping marketing will be directed at non-smokers. Would that be something that you would support?
I'm sorry, I didn't. Can you?
Yes, ban all advertising and promotion of vaping other than on the cigarette packages. If our goal is to direct the message to smokers that vaping exists so that they can use that to maybe pick up vaping as a safer method of ingesting nicotine.
The information with respect to promotion and marketing of these types of products is very, very restrictive. And the information...
It's not.
It's still very restrictive. We certainly want to make sure that there's informational type of products that will be available to Canadians, but it's in no way wanting to encourage, with respect, when we look at the lifestyle amendments that I'm proposing,
okay,
we are certainly looking at making sure that that information will be very, very restrictive. Mm-hmm. So it's going to have to be based on science. People are not going to be able to just come up with slogans with respect to that.
I'm going to move to a different subject, if I could, plain packaging. I talked to Nicola Roxon, the former Australian health minister, who told me that tobacco companies are extremely sophisticated and they will exploit every single loophole in plain packaging legislation. I'm sure you were told the same. And in the consultation document on the proposed regulations concerning plain packaging, Health Canada did not include the option of further regulating brand names beyond limiting the number of words that they can contain. So Ms. Roxon told me that's something we should look at, because you don't want a company to change their name to Smoking Makes You Slimmer Inc. Smoking is Sexy Inc. So right now the only provisions are to limit the number of words, not the type of advertising that could be using the company name. Would you be open to such an amendment if that's the case?
We certainly, when we look at the issue of plain packaging, there is extremely limited information that's available and that's allowed on plain packaging as it is right now. We recognize that we certainly want to make sure that the name only is allowed, but also, as you're well aware, the information with respect to health warnings and graphics, that's really the information that is there.
But what I'm telling you is that the brand names are limited only to the number of words they can contain, the number of words, not what the words are. So it's a potential part on the cigarette package that could be then exploited for lifestyle advertising. Would you be open to us amending that if that's the case?
At this point in time, as the legislation stands, we would have regulatory authority to make that change.
Finally, I just want to ask about...
One very quick one, just 10 seconds.
Australia, France, UK all have plain packaging. Minister, do you have any information about what impact plain packaging had on smoking rates in those countries?
Yeah. So I can say that last year I had the privilege to meet the health minister in France. I was there for the G7 meetings, and we had an opportunity to talk about the different health issues that are going on within our countries. And ironically, well, surprisingly, I guess in France, when we look at obesity rates in Canada, we know that they are very, very high. But in France, it's very much the opposite. What she's concerned about is the high smoking rates in their country. And they've indicated they've moved forward with respect to the issue of plain packaging. And they have seen a decrease in the numbers. Now it's very much in its early stages of it all, but they've already seen a decrease in the numbers when it comes to young people from France with respect to the smoking rates. So we are certainly looking at different countries and the work that they're doing, and we see that the trend is going down, and we're following suit from many countries that have already started with plain packaging, and we certainly know that it can be effective.
That's it. Thanks very much. Now, Dr. Ellison for 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister, for coming. Having practiced medicine for almost 20 years, I certainly, this has been an issue near and dear to my heart, as I've said in my remarks during the debates. Just to refer to some studies that were mentioned by my honourable member across the way, suggesting a link between plain packaging and contraband tobacco and its associated terrible crimes. Are you aware of any research that is not sponsored by tobacco companies or their paid lobbyists that makes claims, that is credible research that makes claims that there are increases in contraband tobacco due to plain packaging?
Thank you very much, Dr. Elson, for your question. And no, in actual fact, the information that we've received is very clear that plain packaging absolutely works. It's certainly an approach that many countries have used, and we see studies time and time again that they are very, very effective. There was even a Canadian study that was done recently that it showed that young Canadian women were 3 times more likely to smoke cigarettes from a branded package as opposed to plain package. So again, we certainly recognize that when we look at the issue of plain packaging, it's certainly effective, it's less attractive to smokers, and especially our young population.
All right, thank you. Likewise, there are claims that there is contrary data on the rates of smoking and that it does work or does not work. And I spent a lot of time going through the research. We had one witness that pointed out from the Canadian Cancer Society, I believe, that actually had a stack of 150 peer-reviewed studies that showed the effectiveness of plain packaging on smoking rates, and yet there's some say that the jury is still out on this. Again, in a similar vein, are you aware of any non-tobacco company-sponsored or tobacco lobbyist-sponsored research that makes a credible case for plain packaging not working on decreasing smoking rates?
Yeah. Once again, I have to reiterate my previous response to that. The information that we've received certainly shows a direct correlation that plain packaging certainly does help and assist in reducing the rates of tobacco use. And once again, I had the privilege last week or 2 weeks ago to meet with the Canadian Cancer Society, and they also shared with me a lot of information that was based on research and science that they've were able to share with me. And the evidence is really quite overwhelming that plain packaging, when it comes to tobacco, absolutely is an effective way, to see the downward trend of tobacco use.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. The experience in France was brought up a little earlier. How long ago did France initiate plain packaging?
It's been going on over a 3-year period, and I believe that the actual start date was in 2017. So we certainly have seen, when we looked at the trends, that there was quite a significant amount, a percentage of smokers that stopped smoking was during the beginning of that transition phase, but we're still looking at that information very, very closely. But preliminary findings show that there's certainly a link there, but again, we'll certainly continue to look at, the evaluation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Now, on to vaping, I know that there are, I appreciate the fact that you want to make amendments restricting the advertising of vaping. Now, there are those, we've heard some claims that, vaping is, less harmful, and that, yes, in itself is less harmful. Are you aware of any trends or research indicating that those who've never smoked, who start smoking or who start vaping, are likely to go on to smoking tobacco?
I haven't seen any specific research with respect to that, but with the proposed Bill S5, that's why that it's really important for us to strike that balance. We really want to make sure that we in no way promote vaping, the vaping products to children that are under the age of 18 or to promote it to anyone that's a non-smoker at this point in time. We don't want to create another generation of people that are addicted to this substance. So that is why, with respect to our marketing and our promotional types of material, we're very restrictive to ensure that they don't encourage young people to want to start this habit. But with that being said, as I've also indicated, we also recognize that it can be a very good harm reduction type of approach when it comes to smokers. So we certainly want to ensure that the products are available for those smokers right now, with the hope that they are going to be able to wean themselves off. I have to share with you, if I have the time, Mr. Chair.
You're done.
Okay, I will continue on next round. How's that? Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, now we go to Mr. Elvis for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to be here today as a guest on the committee. Minister, nice to see you. I haven't interacted with you since you left our Finance Committee table. I'm sure you don't miss us, but we miss you. However, I'd like just to kind of follow up with my colleague, MP Finlay, just in regards to plain packaging. First of all, we have a public health care system in this country which obviously is funded by tax dollars. If you have any leakage in the system, so to speak, from excise tax for cigarettes or whatnot, then that means that some other dollars are going to have to pick up for it. So I'm a little concerned when you say that the CRA excise stamp will clearly identify what is a legal product and what is an illegal product, because it has been brought up that those stamps have been found on illegal baggies. Have you heard of this, Minister?
Yes, I have.
Have you encouraged the Minister of National Revenue to conduct a study or a review of the program as to how these CRA excise stamps are ending up on illegal counterfeit products?
With respect, as I've indicated earlier, resources have been put in place to provide RCMP, public safety, and also Canadian Border Services with the resources that they need to ensure that they can conduct the work that is needed in this area. Contraband, the area of contraband is an issue, but for myself as Health Minister, my priority is the health and safety of Canadians, and I truly want to ensure that we can do all that we can to reduce the numbers of smokers in this country and to ensure that people do not get addicted to nicotine products.
So further to my colleague's suggestion, though, if illegal contraband products are now displaying the CRA stamp, and you're suggesting that that is going to be the sole differentiation between an illegal product and a legal product, because what will end up happening is not only will smokers inadvertently purchase the product, they will not be contributing to our tax system, they will be consuming things we don't know what is in it. And at the same token, Minister, we're going to see reduced revenues. And again, the lower the cost is, usually the higher the consumption. That's basic microeconomics. So, Minister, are there other steps beyond just the excise stamp? Because I don't think that this has been battle tested. If you have a program that is currently not working as intended, to only now say let's count on it with plain packaging as being the sole differentiator, that's not a very good plan.
Well, once again, thank you so much for your question. And I want to be clear, we take the issue of contraband very seriously, and that is why that we have provided resources to our three main agencies, as I've listed earlier, with respect to the RCMP, Canadian Border Services, to do the work that is needed. And we, again, I have to reiterate, we take the issue of contraband seriously.
I appreciate you've talked to the Minister of National Revenue. I'd like to switch gears now to vaping. In the bill, it gives you the power to schedule and list certain types of product. Now, you've said it's to protect children, and I don't disagree with that we need to protect children. What I would say is, first of all, marijuana is listed as being on there. However, it seems kind of interesting to me that you would say people over you have to be 18 to buy a vaping product, but you can't buy marijuana flavored vaping products, yet they can go and buy, under the new regime that you proposed in C46 and C45, marijuana. Why have you listed marijuana as one of the flavors that cannot be sold?
If I understand your question correctly, with respect to the possibility of down the road being able to vape cannabis types of products. That part of the legislation will not be allowed until the first year of the passing of Bill C-45. When it comes to vaping cannabis, that would be considered a form of
flavor.
concentrate.
I'm talking about the flavors that have been banned. So it may not even be real cannabis inside of it. It just is a flavor that's been banned.
With respect to the Bill S-5?
We're not allowed
Yes.
cannabis flavor.
Yeah.
It's in there.
Yeah, and we're not allowing cannabis flavor because, once again, we certainly want to make sure that it's not going to be attractive to youth.
But you're just allowing the real thing on another side, and yet you're saying that you can't let adults who are 18 and older access marijuana-flavored vaping products. To me, that just makes absolutely no sense. The last thing I would just suggest, Minister, is scheduling these kinds of things. What happens if someone starts naming their products instead of cotton candy? Why don't they just start saying lifesaver or rainbow flavored or those kinds of things? I think that this is going to be a very troublesome regime for your office, just because markets will move rather quickly. Could you respond to those concerns?
Very quickly, please.
I think, once again, we're talking about apples and oranges here, and I think we have to be very, very clear. We are moving forward with Bill S-5, and with respect to the issue of flavors, we want to make sure that there's strict restrictions that are in place to ensure that in no way these products will be attractive to children. We also recognize, however, that there are benefits to adults who choose to want to use these products. Going from smoking to using vaping products, the evidence is clear that it's less harmful, and that is why we're moving forward with this balanced type of regime to ensure that we can offer the products to those who need it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Oliver, 5 minutes.
Thank you, and thank you very much for being here. Welcome back to the Health Committee. So there's been a good discussion already about the balancing act that's here in S5. On one hand, we want to get our youth away from nicotine, away from tobacco. If we don't want them to be enticed or brought in to become addicted to nicotine. For me, that is the number one priority. I've heard you say that as well. That is, to me, what must happen, and that's what S5 is continuing to further. We have a second item, though, which is trying to move adults who have tobacco smoking habits onto a healthier way of consuming nicotine than smoking. So those are the competing agendas. Personally, I don't think the balance is there. I think you've mentioned a few times that you think it's there. So I was delighted to hear that you are entertaining an amendment on lifestyle. And I think that's a very important one, so thank you for that. The second one, though, is on location of advertising and location for vapor product advertising. I have a 13-year-old son. So I don't want to be at my neighborhood bus stop with him with a vaping advertisement on my local bus stop. I don't want to go to the movie theater and try to explain, what vaping is and why vaping is a product that's being advertised. I don't want to go to the local hockey rink and explain to him what vaping is and why it is. So location is a critical issue. And I believe that the way it's set up now, we're going to be exposing young Canadians to vape products when we don't have to. So the Canadian Cancer Society was very strong on this one. So the Minister, what they said about S5 was the vaping restrictions are weaker than the Tobacco Act and Bill C-45 for cannabis, that the vaping product advertising restrictions are weaker than almost every other developed country except for the United States, and that the location, these are all location advertising, and the provisions regarding the location of vaping advertising are so weak that they resemble those of the 1964 tobacco industry advertising. So I guess my question to you is, would you please consider, and I'd like to bring one forward, an amendment that also restricts the location of advertising for vaping. I think there's lots of ways to communicate to adults who are smokers that vaping is a better way to consume nicotine than putting it on hockey rink boards. So would you consider an amendment on location?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Oliver, for your question. And yes, as you've indicated with respect to the lifestyle advertisement, I'm very open to an amendment with respect to that, as we've heard a lot of testimony over the past few weeks with respect to that. So I'm, like I said, I would welcome that type of amendment, because we certainly want to make sure that we are in no way encouraging non-smokers, non-vaping users to get into that. I'm getting it, yeah. Okay. So with respect to the area of location of where the actual factual information can be placed, and once again, it's not advertisement with promoting the product, but basic factual information with respect to vaping. I've been advised that we have extensive regulatory powers to choose as to where that information can be posted, actually, in actual fact. So within the regulations, we do have the powers of controlling where those types of ads or that type of information can be placed.
Why wouldn't we just restrict it to the point of sale? I don't see a need for that advertising. But what worries me, and I haven't mentioned it, but the Cancer Society also wanted to make sure that there was restrictions on advertising brand or brand preference advertising. So you are going to get a much more exciting, even though you're stopping lifestyle, you're going to get promotion of vaping products with branding and with other ways of it. Like the cigarette industry has learned to do this stuff like nobody else on the planet. They can make a product look exciting. I saw little cigarettes that were glittery and looked like a tube of lipstick. So they can make this stuff look incredibly exciting. So I think if we don't restrict location, we're going to see exciting vaping products just because they've been marketed that way, although they're not really lifestyle, on hockey rinks and all over our communities. So I would encourage again that you think about accepting an amendment on location.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to respond?
Thank you. And again, as indicated, with respect to the regulations that are in place, we absolutely do have the authority to restrict as to where that marketing is going to be. I think as well, we have to ensure, however, that we have to also strike that balance, because we also want to target the individuals that are the smokers, that we want them to be able to move on to the vaping alternative. Again, as I've indicated, in no way am I saying that vaping is harmless. We know that there's harms associated to it, but we also recognize that the use of tobacco is even more dangerous. So that is why it's important for us to kind of strike that balance between the two. But it's a point very well taken, and that is why that within our regulations that we do have the power to be able to choose where those locations can be.
Thank you very much. And now we go to Ms. Gladue.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for appearing. I want to talk a bit about young people and vaping. I'm very concerned that young people are going to, they're going to see vaping because you'll be able to vape wherever you can smoke. And we heard some very disturbing statistics in our previous testimony about the number of young people that have already tried vaping and the likelihood that once they get vaping, they will actually begin smoking. And so if I look at the existing situation, we've got these illegal vape shops. And when the regulations are brought in to regulate the industry, they've not had a great track record of keeping these things out of the hands of children. The convenience stores, on the other hand, have a very good track record in terms of making sure that, they check age before they are selling tobacco products. So my question is, what are we going to do in terms of inspection, auditing, or whatever on these operations that are vaping operations that are illegal today? And will we allow the convenience stores to participate in the vaping sales?
Well, thank you very much for the question. And you bring up some very good points, Ms. Gladue. With respect to protecting the youth, that is absolutely a priority of mine as Health Minister. We recognize that at this point in time, when we look at the vaping industry in Canada, it is worth millions of dollars. And at this point, this system is completely unregulated. So we recognize that people are selling products all over the place. The products that they purchase are unregulated. We don't know where they come from. And also the devices that they use to vape as well. There's no requirements there at all. So that is why that Bill S5 is so important, because we certainly want to make sure that the rules are put in place in order to control these types of products. And keeping it out of the hands of our children is absolutely a priority. That is why that setting the minimum age of 18 with respect to consumption to use is absolutely a step in the right direction, because just as you've indicated, we certainly want to make sure that the area of them being able to have access to it is going to be extremely limited. With respect to the sales of the products, I'm going to be frank, I'm going to have to turn it over to one of my officials as to exactly where it's going to be sold, because I don't have the specific details regarding that. So if I can turn it over to James, perhaps, or to Denis, they've told me. So.
Yes, we have 8 provinces who already have measures in place for limiting sales to youth of vaping products. What we do nationally is establish a minimum across the country. So Already there's been measures put in place in a number of provinces. They have tobacco inspectors. We also have tobacco inspectors. We work together, as I said on tobacco before, we'll be working together as well on vaping. Some provinces will have ability to decide who will sell tobacco products and vaping products. We don't already for tobacco products. For example, many provinces have banned the sale of tobacco products in hospitals or in schools, universities, and so forth. Vaping products, they will also have to decide where those sales will be taking place. It's not something we would do federally.
And back to the minister. So did I understand you correctly? Did you say that for, in terms of the vaping of marijuana, that won't be allowed until 1 year after C45 is implemented? Is that correct?
Correct. With respect to the issue of being able to consume or to vape marijuana, I guess, that would be considered a concentrated type of product, and that would only be available a year after the coming into force of Bill C45. Very much like edibles, we recognize that when we've had conversations or testimony, we've heard testimony from our colleagues in Colorado. They've indicated that...
That's okay. I get it. Okay, I want to go back to the contraband issue and the protections. We heard about the 17 different technologies that go into the CRA excise stamps, but there was also a suggestion that using an alphanumeric marker on the individual sticks might be helpful. What are the other protection technologies that you're considering? Because we did hear that the contraband market is, I mean, conservatively 30% in Canada. In some places, like in my riding, is just rife.
Well, once again, as I've indicated earlier, we take the issue of contraband extremely seriously. And with respect to the details, with respect to the stamping of the products, I'm going to have to turn it over to one of my colleagues here, so I'm sorry.
Sorry. We do take that very seriously. We do, first of all, I'd say, again, that we don't see any evidence that plain and standardized packaging contributes to the problem of illicit trade. This is what we hear from the other regulators who've moved down the way. We do see evidence that it reduces the appeal of the products, especially to young people. On the topic of how to deal with the problem of contraband, we agree that this is a serious problem that needs to be addressed. And over the last 5 years, the government spent $43 million working on the contraband issue through various partnerships with public safety and RCMP, CBSA, and various other police forces. On the tax stamps, they have overt and covert markings, absolutely. It is possible to use, the S5 provides us with the authority to require alphanumeric stamping on individual tobacco products that would help with tracking. Finally, when I look at the Australian model, they have allowed covert marks on the packs by industry. That's something that we're looking at and considering as we figure out what the regs will actually say.
Okay, thanks very much. Now we go to Ms. Sidhu. Bye.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister, for joining us today. Certainly, we want to reduce the people who use tobacco product. And you said, even though Cancer Society, there's some evidence, reduce the impact of tobacco when using the vaping product. What kind of research has been done to ensure these products are safe? Number two, what are the plans for ongoing research to track the safety of these products?
Thank you very much, Ms. Sidhu, for your question. Once again, we recognize that the vaping industry is a very new industry, and as a result, the research is fairly new as well. But we certainly continue to monitor all research that's available, and what we see thus far is that vaping products shows that it's safer than tobacco use. Again, we're not saying that it's without any harms that are associated to it, but we certainly recognize that when we look at the level of risk, it's less harmful than tobacco use is. With respect to vaping as well, we continue to invest in that area. In the area of CIHR, there's some investment, some research that is presently being done there. And again, we continue to monitor all the research because we certainly want to make sure that if there's any changes that are going to be needed, we certainly want to be able to address that, very quickly. So we continue to look at all of the research that is out there, and we continue to invest in that area as well.
Okay. Renewed tobacco control, Minister. One of the stated target is to reduce the rate of tobacco used to less than 5% by 2035. Could you please tell us how you and your department are approaching this strategy?
Well, thank you very much. As you're aware, we continue to work on our tobacco strategy at the moment. We finished off a consultation process with many Canadians, and in December of this year, we just released our What We Heard report, actually, with respect to those consultations. As a result of those consultations, we are certainly taking all that information in hand, and that is going to form, the next part of our framework moving forward. But we recognize that if we want to attain the objective of reducing tobacco use by 2035, we have to move forward. And with respect to the area of Bill S5, this is absolutely a step in the right direction. We recognize that when we look at the issue of plain packaging, that there's an absolute correlation that we'll see the number of smokers reduced as a result of that. So that is why that I'm very pleased that we're able to move forward with this legislation, and looking forward to seeing it receive royal assent, and then from there we'll be able, to enforce the rules and regulations that will be in place. And then from there continuing on with other components of our strategy to make sure that we can work hard to achieve our 2035 targets.
Thank you. And is there any public education campaign is running for the tobacco harm and nicotine addiction?
Yeah. With respect to the issue of public education and awareness, there is an investment of $6.1 million in the area of public awareness in education with respect to vaping products as well, because again, it's a very new product that's on the market. And we also want to make sure that people are aware of the risks that are associated to vaping, but also to provide them with the basic information that they need. So investments will be made in that area, because we certainly want to make sure that we provide information to parents, to children, to everyone with respect to the harms related to these types of products.
Thank you.
Very much, Mr. Davidson. 3 quick minutes, please.
Thank you. Minister, Health Canada has not commissioned an anti-tobacco marketing campaign since its suspension of federal anti-tobacco ads in 2006 when the Harper government took office. That's not surprising to me, given the Conservatives' defense of big tobacco, but according to spending figures from Health Canada, the Health Department under your government spent nothing on a national advertising campaign in the mass media for the federal tobacco control strategy in 2015-2016. Why is that?
Well, as I've just indicated, however, there's $6.1 million that we are going to be investing in the area of public education and awareness with respect to this area. We certainly feel that it's extremely important to make sure that Canadians are aware of the harmful effects associated to vaping products and to the use, and we are going to be moving forward with those types of investments.
So you acknowledge that so far, from 2015 to 2018, your health department has not spent any money on mass media, national advertising campaign on anti-tobacco?
Well, with respect to it, we've launched our new tobacco strategy, and once again, we're certainly making strides moving forward with respect to that. If we want to reach our 2035 targets of having less than 5% of Canadians that are going to be consumers of tobacco, and we're going to do all that we can to ensure that we can meet that target.
I would suggest that part of doing something would be to start to bring in a national federal advertising on tobacco. You could bring that back. I want to talk about the flavoring. I don't think that you satisfactorily answered Mr. Albus's questions. I don't know if you understand that in Schedule 3, the flavors are set out specifically. So the question is if there's flavors that aren't listed as prohibited on Schedule 3, then that leaves it open to the market to market under other attractive flavors. That's, I think, the question. What's your response to that?
Once again, with respect to the regulations and the proposal that we brought forward in Bill S5, we absolutely want to make it clear that there is going to be no names of flavors that are going to be attracting children.
You plan on supplementing in the regulations what's in the schedule presently?
We absolutely want to make clear that there is no names of flavors that are going to be appealing to children.
I guess I want to end with this lifestyle. I'm not sure that I'm clear on this. S5 does restrict the kinds of ads for vaping products that are allowed in public places. Those that are reasonably attractive to youth or lifestyle. That's Section 30.2. But it places fewer restrictions on ads in adult-only venues like bars, where lifestyle ads and purchase incentives are permitted. That's 30.3. So in Alberta, 18-year-olds are in bars, and they're inside getting lifestyle ads on vaping, and I thought you said that you don't want to promote vaping to anyone. So is that the kind of problem in this bill that you want to correct?
Absolutely.
Very
With respect
quickly,
to any
please.
type of lifestyle ads, I truly don't feel, like I said, I would welcome an amendment with respect to that, because I feel that we certainly don't want to send that message specifically to young people, but young people as well that are not consumers of tobacco nor vaping products.
Thank you very much. And now, Mr. Ayoub, 3 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, we heard from various witnesses, and there was one that really left an impression on me, Mr. Ostigui, who works at McGill University. He's a doctor who works in smoking cessation clinics. And when we got to the subject of vaping, he said it would be possible to have people to stop smoking, but they would need to be monitored and followed. It's a product, for example, it's a product like patches, or patches are prescribed by doctors, but vaping products are not. They would be available in the marketplace. So in order for these tools to truly be useful to Canadians, they would have to be used properly. And it seems that the smoking or the tobacco industry wants to do, we heard this from Benson Hedges, they might want to control this. So how are we going to delineate the use of vaping and have it available to people who want to stop smoking, but not available to young people? Well, that is the goal of our bill. We want to make sure that children won't be attracted. But we do want to make sure that Canadians will have access to the right information, helpful information based on science, and not based on industry-funded research. This information will be available to Canadians. It will have to be vetted by by Health Canada, so that we get the right messages to Canadians. We want to make sure, absolutely sure, that the information Canadians get will be accurate and science-based. Thank you.
Our first round, thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Thank you, everybody, for your cooperation on the timing. And we'll just suspend for a few minutes while we collect our other panel together, and we'll start all over again. Okay. We can all come back to the table. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's perfect. It's a treat.
Late meetings.
Okay. We'll all settle down now.
Just go for it.
Order! That's the vice chair. That's pretty good. Anyway, thanks very much. Now, our day has been turned inside out, as I'm sure yours has too, because of different things that happened in the House. And we have a short period here now to go through a lot of questions. So I'm going to propose when we come to questions that our first round be 5 minutes. And we'll just see how far we can get, but we're not everybody's going to get their questions. So, okay, well, I'm certainly going to welcome our guests, the Canadian Vaping Association, Mr. Mark Keeley, Member and Public Affairs Council, Mr. Boris Giller, Member, and from Vape Select, Sherwin Edwards, Chief Executive Director. And I can assure you that we're just beginning to learn about your business. We welcome your input and your information, and I'm sure you're going to be a big help to us in understanding a lot of what goes on. So I'm going to invite the Canadian Vaping Association to make a 10-minute opening statement, and then we'll have 10 minutes from Vape Select, and then we'll go to questions. So.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate through you, the members, giving us an opportunity to share our perspective on this piece of legislation. I'm a health public policy expert, Mr. Chairman. I'm a member of the Canadian Vaping Association, and I'm its lead on government affairs. With me today is Mr. Boris Giller, who's a CVA board member and the co-owner of one of Canada's largest vape product shops, 180 Smoke. Together, Boris and I have expertise in the vape industry. The industry in Canada is a decade old, Mr. Chairman, and CVA has been the premier advocate on behalf of the industry, its members, and those who vape. Our goal is for fair legislation and regulation. Our reach goes across Canada, and our impact with government goes to all three levels. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank your committee members, the House of Commons and the Senate for the leadership on this. It's a tough piece of legislation. As a government, as a committee, and as regulators, you did say yes to vaping in Canada and regulated it instead of an outcome that would have forced it underground. We appreciate that. It is a viable alternative to smoking, Mr. Chairman, and as such, the Canadian model, as we contemplate it today, is, if you travel in our circles, a bit of an envy around the world, believe it or not. Let me further contextualize that. A few years ago, vaping in Canada was a hobby. Today, it's a viable industry, increasing exponentially as vapers seek an alternative to smoking cigarettes. The number of vape product shops has grown exponentially in Canada as well, with the current numbers of almost 1,000 stores in Canada, representing well over 5,000 employees, serving over 1 million customers, and generating hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. At the same time, there are 100 e-liquid and hardware manufacturers representing significant pre- and post-market sales, which in turn underscores significant recurring and predictable revenues against a marketplace of who want to vape and no longer smoke cigarettes. Please understand that the growth of this industry has not been the result of expensive marketing campaigns. The CVA and our member organizations are not aligned with tobacco. In fact, the growth of vaping has been a direct result of the substantial demand for vape products by millions of ex-smokers. And the market will only continue to grow, not only as a viable and a less harmful alternative to cigarettes, but also because of government initiatives that legislate it as a less harmful product in Canada. The majority of Canadian vape product shop operators, manufacturers of e-liquids, and advocates are, like many who vape, former smokers. They have chosen to vape rather than smoke cigarettes. They realize the potential of this disruptive technology as a less harmful alternative to smoking both cigarettes and, of course, now cannabis. CVA has taken substantial risks, Mr. Chairman, to pursue a mission aligned with Bill S5. Many people associated with vaping would assert a different path of perhaps fighting government on what they believe is their right to vape. However, and contrary to that view, the Canadian Vaping Association believes that working with government on making this bill work is more palatable and more productive. Mr. Chairman, we believe Canada is a role model for other countries in developing and implementing effective ways at reducing the harms of smoking. At the provincial level, smoke-free legislation has taken hold. I've been part of the Smoke-Free Ontario campaign from the start 10 years ago. At the national level, Canada's tobacco reduction initiative is enviable. Through Bill S5, we believe that the Government of Canada has been responsible implementing suitable and effective legislation that ensures adult smokers have access to products that substantially reduce the harm that cigarette smoking is known to cause, all the while recognizing that a less harmful alternative ought to be available. To amend the Tobacco Act and create a category for vaping is not only welcome, Mr. Chairman, it suggests that vaping is a choice over smoking and has the potential for dramatically reducing disease and death caused by smoking. CVA encourages members of this committee to review the growing body of evidence, including qualified literature, global studies and research on vaping that modifies our views and, frankly, ought to form the thinking of your committee when looking to draft regulations for vaping going forward. Over the last few years, the Canadian Vaping Association has met with several of you on the committee in advance of this presentation to encourage your support for our views and to offer advice. Let me be specific. Recent studies in the aggregate have shown that vaping is less harmful than smoking. The minister herself, the former minister, referenced our own CVA messaging when she introduced the legislation in November of 2016, suggesting that science is catching up with vaping. On that point, Mr. Chairman, we're pleased that the legislation includes a timely review so that as science and research proves out in favor of vaping as a less harmful alternative, those findings will in fact be reflected appropriately in your regulations. With respect to overall industry regulation, we've been working closely with qualified organizations on the development and implementation of an accreditation program at the national level. The patchwork of regulation from provincial legislative initiatives across Canada has confounded this industry while we wait for this milestone to occur. Bill S5, Mr. Chairman, does offer a national framework for retail and manufacturers of vape products, and we aspire to have this reflected in our national accreditation program plan. CVA board member Sam Tam sits with Health Canada on the Underwriter Laboratory Committee to establish global standards for technology, devices and battery safety as it pertains to vaping. Furthermore, our board president, Sean Casey, sits on a Standards Council of Canada committee chaired by Health Canada for the establishment of ISO e-liquid manufacturing safety standards. An accreditation program, we believe, will provide comfort to you as regulators that products and services available to consumers of vape products are of a quality that is measured against a robust set of standards. A national accreditation program would require vape manufacturers, e-liquid and hardware manufacturers alike, as well as vape product shops to commit and submit to a program where a common set of standards for operations of their physical plants, policies and procedures, and other variables are measured. Any negligent behaviors or deficiencies would result in fines or perhaps remediation plans respectively to demonstrate compliance. We're committed to this process. The utmost important piece of this legislation, in our view, ought to be the value of the information and the manner in which customers receive detail by a vape product shop employee. When they make the choice to acquire or consume a vape product, they need to know what they're buying. To that end, Mr. Chairman, we encourage the committee to work with us at the Canadian Vape Association as we develop a certification program for vape product shop employees. To that end, purveyors of vape products anywhere in Canada ought to be well trained to help customers make the logical choice to a less harmful product than other cigarettes. Mr. Chairman, we're considering qualified career colleges not only to develop a curriculum, but to have it delivered in every province. It would be entirely helpful to make this certification program part of your intended regulations and mandatory in all provinces. In fact, the FDA in the United States referred to our plans for certification in Canada as a beacon to follow in the United States. It contemplates national dialogue in the United States on its own vape legislation, and they've looked to Canada, and especially what we're doing on certification, as a role model to that end. Our President, Sean Casey, and I have testified on many occasions in the United States on this issue. The Canadian Vaping Association believes the goal of regulation should be to ensure that maximum benefits are realized while minimizing potential harms. We believe that sales should be restricted to those over the age of majority. We concede that restricting its use in public spaces is inevitable. We agree that certain lifestyle promotion or advertisements are not appropriate. The amendments we put forward on Bill S5 to the Senate committee ensured that youth are not able to access these products, and we agree that the use and acquisition of vaping tools should be limited to public areas that minors are prohibited from entering. Additionally, the amendments we originally put forward to the Senate provide adult smokers with access to assistance provided through qualified vape product shop employees, which can be crucial to the success of a smoker looking for an alternative to cigarettes. Vaping technology has catapulted in quality by leaps and bounds. Research, too, has debunked the myths that have permeated mainstream media about vaping, and because the technology is getting better, vaping may yet prove to be an effective breakthrough in anti-smoking. I welcome your questions and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Edwards, did you have an opening statement?
Good evening. My name is Sherwin Edwards. I want to thank you first and foremost for your time and allowing me a moment to bear witness. I'm the president of VapSelect Inc. based in Mirabel, Quebec. VapSelect is a proudly owned and Canadian-owned and operated Canadian company which was created in 2011 with the consumer in mind. We produce affordable, innovative vaping products for consumers, giving them an alternative to cigarettes. All VapSelect products are manufactured in GMP facilities and adhere to strict global certifications. To meet the growing consumer demand for these products, we recently expanded to a 6,500 square foot facility. However, that is only part of the reason why I am here today. I am also the sponsor of a 10,000 plus signature petition that has been tabled in the House of Commons on Bill S5, January 30th, 2018. That petition calls on the government to halt and review Bill S5 and to create a fair and logical category for vape products, clearly setting them apart from tobacco. So let me start on that point. It should be obvious to anyone that vaping products and tobacco products are two completely different things and do not belong in the same piece of legislation. You don't put alcohol and soft drinks in the same legislation because you drink both of them. And therefore, you shouldn't put vaping products and cigarettes in the same category because both are inhaled. Vaping products like e-cigarettes are much safer alternative to tobacco for those people unwilling or unable to quit smoking. They provide the nicotine that smokers crave without the harmful effects of combustion. That's an important point. Nicotine on its own is no more harmful than caffeine, and nicotine actually occurs naturally in many products we all consume daily. It's the combustion that causes the negative health effects of smoking, not the nicotine. That is why esteemed medical and scientific bodies like Public Health England and the Royal College of Physicians have said that e-cigarettes are at least 95% less harmful than smoking. Just last week, Public Health England came out with an updated report on e-cigarettes, and let me quote directly from that organization's press release the main findings. 1. Vaping poses only a small fraction of the risks of smoking. Switching completely from smoking to vaping conveys substantial health benefits. 2. E-cigarettes could be contributing to at least 20,000 successful new quits per year, and probably more. E-cigarette use is associated with improved quit success rates over the last year and an accelerated drop in smoking rates across the country. Many thousands of smokers incorrectly, and this is really bad, incorrectly believe that vaping is as harmful as smoking. Around 40% of smokers have not even tried an e-cigarette. There's much public misunderstanding about nicotine. Less than 10% of adults understand that most of the harms to health from smoking are not caused by nicotine. The use of e-cigarettes in the United Kingdom has plateaued over the last few years at just under 3 million. The evidence does not support the concern that e-cigarettes are a gateway into smoking among young people. Youth smoking rates in the UK continue to decline. Regular e-cigarette use is almost entirely confined to those who have previously smoked cigarettes. I want to pick up on the fourth and fifth points I cited from the Public Health England report, both of which deal with public misunderstandings regarding the risks of vaping and nicotine. I put the blame for this squarely on the shoulders of governments and health groups, some of which, deliberately or not, have misled Canadians about the risks of vaping products. Those who continue to do so deserve public shaming for scaring people away from these devices. which usually means they continue smoking, which is more harmful to their health. I asked the committee a question. From who would you rather get advice on vaping products such as e-cigarettes? Organizations like Public Health England and the Royal College of Physicians, or high-paid lawyers lobbying for tobacco groups? For me, when I want medical advice, I go to a doctor, not a lawyer. You may have seen or heard that a public debate on vaping products was recently held here in Ottawa during National Non-Smoking Week. I was there. Dr. Astangui, who you heard from on Monday, was there, as was the University of Ottawa's David Sweener and a representative from the Tobacco Harm Reduction Association of Canada. We had a great discussion on the value of vaping products for reducing tobacco use, but completely absent from the discussion was Health Canada or any of those so-called health groups who are misleading the public about the risks of these products. None of the anti-vaping products groups or health advocates accepted the invitation to debate their position in public. But I see a couple of them appear before your committee on Monday. They won't shy away from that. These groups know their position is indefensible, which is why they refuse to debate people like myself or Dr. Astangui or Dr. Sweener in public. If this committee wants Canadians to stop smoking cigarettes, as does the health minister and likely all Canadian citizens, then stop listening to the moralists and public health community who are deliberately misleading Canadians about the risks of vaping products. With that in mind, I have two recommendations for the committee. First, the vaping provisions of Bill S5 should be stripped out entirely, and Health Canada told to go back to the drawing board to come up with legislation that treats these products as completely separate from tobacco. Health Canada didn't throw marijuana, which when consumed via the combustible process actually has higher levels of tar content than cigarettes do, into the Tobacco Act. So why are you letting them put vaping products in there? Tobacco products and vaping products are completely separate, different products that require their own distinctive legislative framework. Secondly, whether in a new bill or if S5 is passed, smokers need to be properly informed about the relative health risk of tobacco products versus vaping products. Sweden has virtually eliminated tobacco-related cancer because smokers switched to non-combustible products. The UK, who embraced the principles of harm reduction, have also seen smoking rates and smoking-related illness drop to an all-time low, hence also reducing the burdens and the costs on their health system overall. There's enormous public health potential if Canadian smokers are well informed and given choices to switch as well. But they will only do so if they know about vaping products such as e-cigarettes and understand the relative risk being greatly lesser than smoking tobacco. I have serious concerns about the constraints in Bill S5 that would prevent the vaping industry to communicate and share this information with smokers. Finally, I want to make one more point about this whole debate, and particularly the anti-smoking groups who continue to spread information about e-cigarettes and suggest that there are better ways of quitting, such as cold turkey or using the patch or the gum or something else. The people making those claims are not smokers, and quite frankly, I would encourage them to butt out. Some smokers do succeed in quitting through some of these methods I just mentioned, but for others, it is a monumental struggle, in some cases, impossible. For those people and the people who want to continue to use nicotine, vaping products are a lifeline. For governments to put unnecessary restrictions on these products and restrict the ability of those offering these products is unjust, and some experts like David Sweener from the University of Ottawa will tell you it is even unconstitutional. I am of that opinion also, and so are the 10,251 Canadians from coast to coast who signed petition E1237 tabled in the House of Commons on January the 30th. That is another reason why you have to hit the pause button on this bill and work to get it right. Vaping is not smoking. E-liquids are not tobacco. As you can probably tell, I'm very passionate about this subject. So I thank you for listening, and I look forward to your questions.
And thank you very much. And I, for one, am just at the beginning of the learning curve on your product. So I think many of us are like that. So we appreciate your contribution to this. So I think we're going to have to limit the first round of questions to 4 minutes, starting with Mr. Ayub.
OK. Fine. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll get directly to my point. I met with you in other circumstances, and I'm happy to see that the industry or the association is participating in a constructive way in our deliberations. You were present when we talked to the minister earlier, put questions to her. What are your concerns with respect to the health of young people and relative to this bill? Your concerns about the health of young people, because you are a business, and the health side of things would seem to be not as important as it is to the minister. But when it comes to improving Canadians' health, you're going to have to convince us and provide the information we need. As the chair said, we're at the just getting the information we need. So I only have a few minutes. Mr. Healy, would you begin, please? And then Mr. Edwards.
Thank you very much for the question. It is a very important question. Obviously, we're at the Canadian Vaping Association take youth vaping very seriously, and we absolutely do not want any youth addicted to nicotine. Despite the relative reduced risk, it is still an addictive substance. And so we at the Canadian Vaping Association have been taking initiatives prior to it becoming law. We have been distributing 19-plus signs to our members and mandating that in our bylaws. Our membership chair has negotiated a deal with the credit card companies to mandate a ID verification at the point of sale. And at this point, I believe this is a very impactful initiative that is going to heavily limit the access to young people to vaping products. That, I believe, is not enough. I do support some of the suggestions, recommendations to ban lifestyle advertisement, and a lot could be learned, I believe, from the alcohol laws, because it is a dangerous, addictive substance that's restricted to young people, and that problem has been tackled. So one additional suggestion would be to limit the time during which such advertisements could be aired to later in the day. And we do believe that a lot stronger cooperation between the government and our industry is required as it refers to the accreditation and certification program in order to enforce these things and go further even into the realm of educating young people.
Yes, well, if you've been following closely, the vaping industry has done a relatively good job of self-regulating themselves and being very responsible. We restrict sales to adults. I know that I do in my outlet, and I know that my retailers also do. I'm not there to oversee them on a regular basis, but there are guidelines put in place. We do not want to see our children get hooked on nicotine. That's for sure. I'm in agreement with as Boris said, some of the restrictions on lifestyle advertisements. There should be certain guidelines within labeling, which, generally speak, I could speak for myself. My company has been very responsible in that area, where we do not use unicorns and cartoonish types of images on our products. I wouldn't sleep well at night to do that. So the industry itself has done a pretty good job in self-regulating. The governance is needed, oversight is needed, and it's welcome. And we would like to be part of an open communication discussion with government when regulations are going to be determined, because right now it is such a broad, it's scripted in such a broad sense that it's nothing is clear.
Well, thank you very much. Now we go to Ms. Gladue.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the witnesses. The first question I have is about the nicotine e-liquids. I think, Mr. Edwards, you had said that they don't come from tobacco. What's the source of the nicotine then?
Well, the tobacco leaf is actually the plant that contains the highest content of nicotine, where it is therefore more viably commercially extractable. But you could also find nicotine in nightshade plants, such as peppers, green peppers, tomatoes, cauliflower. There's a variety of nightshade plants that
Some
actually
of it
carry...
would be extracted from tobacco then, or not?
Pardon?
So some of the nicotine in the e-liquids is extracted from tobacco?
The nicotine that is used in e-liquid is a tobacco extract for the sole reason that it is more commercially viable to extract from that particular plant.
Okay.
But that being said...
That's fine. My next question has to do with the actual devices. So this legislation leaves all the detail about the device to the regulations. And I know that there were early models that had batteries and there were some safety incidents related to that. So do you have any advice about what actually should go into those regulations in order to make sure that the products are safe for use?
Thank you for that question. I think the nature of the industry is the products are developing faster than the cell phone industry. And in order to catch up with that, we need a mechanism that is a layer on top of regulation and legislation. And that's why we bring up the accreditation program, because if it is run by industry members, we can catch those things early on. Another initiative we have been running at the CVA is Battery Safety Week, aimed at educating retailers and consumers through those retailers about the importance of battery safety. So we believe it is crucial to add a third layer to the current protections in place.
Okay. And what amendments would you like to see specifically to S5? Do you have any? And I'll go to both of you.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I've looked at the bill several times. It is so layered. There's an array of amendments that I would like to see happen there. There's amendments that should happen from a consumer standpoint and also from a manufacturing standpoint. If I want to answer from a manufacturing standpoint, one of them is the fact that we will be mandated to submit our private recipes to Health Canada in detail, and therefore they would become public knowledge and open and available to the public through the Freedom of Access to Information Act. You know, Mr. Christie makes great cookies, but he doesn't tell you precisely what his ingredients are to get the result.
Madame Gladue, if I could, I think your question's very interesting. We presented to the Senate committee. We put some amendments on the table, and we were satisfied with what happened from that perspective, for the most part. We also agree that there will be some opportunity under regulation to change and to do things that we think would benefit the industry. But I think one of the things that I would really like this committee to consider is this whole idea, the notion of a certification program, and to make it mandatory. We are literally holding on to a cliff's edge with every single province. It's been a mind-numbing siege to deal with this country on this issue because we have to go through not only the provinces, but we've been waiting for this to happen. So if this committee was really going to be responsible, and I can sense that you are, that you would make it mandatory for a certification program for everybody who's in this industry, and that makes it viable.
A certification program run by Health Canada or run by your industry?
Well, I wouldn't say it's by the industry. I think you want to have qualified career colleges to be delivering that kind of service.
Okay, you're done. Thanks very much. Mr. Davies, your worship.
Thank you. That's the nicest thing I've been called in a while. Thank you for being with us. I want to just try to get as much information we can about vaping as we can. When someone is vaping nicotine, what other chemicals or substances are being ingested besides nicotine? Are there any?
Let me answer this question. There are 4 ingredients in a vape. 4. Propylene glycol, vegetable glycerin, flavors, and nicotine if they want it. 4. So when you look at that and compare that against, I see this all the time, and we've been compared to cigarettes. There are 1,400 chemicals in a cigarette. And so when you look
at there, because again, I'm not trying to compare to anything. I'm trying to find out, isolate purely to what the products of vaping. You've listed the ingredients, but how many chemicals are being ingested? Are you saying there's only 4 chemicals that are being ingested?
Propylene glycol is generally accepted as safe. Vegetable glycerin is generally accepted.
I ask you if it's safe. I want you to list for me how many chemicals am I ingesting when I vape one of your products?
Well, I could get specific, Mr. Davies, about the chemicals that are in a flavor, but that doesn't mean, I think I know where you're going with your question. But we have been very clear that there are 4 ingredients in a vape versus what you would get in a cigarette. And if we're looking, if we want to compare this to being something that's less harmful, I think that we got to put that out on the table.
Again, Mr. Keeley, I don't know if you know where I'm going. I'm not suggesting that it's more or less safe. I think it's generally accepted that, at least with the state of knowledge now, is that vaping is a significantly safer, much safer ingestion method of nicotine. I have a very sincere and objective desire to find out what the chemicals are. That's all I'm asking.
Okay. So, well, is vegetable glycerin a chemical?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
So vegetable glycerin is a chemical, propylene glycol. It is pharmaceutical grade nicotine, the same that goes into gums, patches, and inhalers. And then flavorings. Flavorings is not a single ingredient, but rather a category. Those are food flavorings, and there could be a plethora. Somebody could put one strawberry flavor extract to produce the desired effect, and somebody else could put 12, a mixture of 12. So it really varies.
Thanks. Now, in terms of flavors, you've probably sat through the last testimony. I think we're trying to get a handle on what's the best way to regulate flavors. If I understand correctly, this act schedules the flavors, and there's some concern that by scheduling a limited number of flavors, that we'll be chasing the industry as it keeps coming up with more and more flavors than having to add them or not. In terms of giving guidance to your industry, so that you know what you can produce and what you can't, do you have any comment or thoughts on what would be an effective regulatory approach to flavoring to make sure that we're not marketing to children?
Absolutely, and I believe that the ministry has stricken a perfect balance in this piece of regulation, banning specifically the marketing of flavors while leaving the ingredients alone. We absolutely think that names like bubblegum and cotton candy should not be allowed, and even for instances like licorice, it should be renamed to something like anise. While flavors may be attractive to children, they're absolutely necessary for adult smokers in order to transition. 100% of my customers are adults, and the vast majority of them prefer flavors. This experience needs to be incrementally more pleasant and more convenient than smoking in order for ex-smokers to naturally gravitate towards that as an alternative to smoking.
And I'm sorry if you've already commented on this, but I want to get your views on the promotion and advertising. You probably heard this dichotomy, quite tight restrictions on advertising and promotion in places that are frequented by children or may, but within places that adults frequent, and I'm going to use the example of a bar, because when we talk about adults, we're talking 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds are populate our bars and nightclubs. Do you agree with the tenor of this committee that we should not be allowing promotion and advertising that are lifestyle oriented towards people in that situation, because that's a means of actually attracting people who don't smoke to try ingesting nicotine through vaping, as opposed to using vaping for a smoking cessation product?
A very quick answer, please.
Absolutely. So children and non-smokers alike should not be targeted by advertising. Lifestyle advertising should be absolutely restricted, and the locations at which it's the ads are placed, if it's a billboard, there's got to be a minimum distance away from a school.
Dr. Elson, you're up. 4 minutes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Edwards, you made a comment that I thought was very good. You said how, in regards to what's safe, we should be asking doctors rather than lawyers. Being a doctor, I might be a little biased, but, on that I would agree. Now, first of all, you said the statement, and I've heard this said before, that vaping is 95% less harmful than smoking. Where does that number come from? Does that come from a medical journal? Does that come from any peer-reviewed scientific research?
It's, from what I understand, it's peer-reviewed scientific research done by the Royal College of Physicians in 2016, and they state that vaping is likely at least 95% less harmful and or toxic than smoking a cigarette. And they recently, Public Health England, last week on February the 6th, did a review on the success and the progress of their liberal, open-minded approach to vaping and harm reduction in their country.
I have limited time, so I'm going to go on. Now, if you could provide those references for us, that would be very useful. Thank you. Now, in regards to another statement that you made, you talked about how this shouldn't be in the same bill as smoking. It's nothing like smoking. We should draft this, take vaping completely out of this legislation, put it somewhere else because it's just not similar. Now, as per your own suggestion, listening to the doctors, from the Canadian Medical Association Journal, 2 separate studies. One finding that smoking or vaping among young people is at rates slightly either at or higher. These are people who try it for the first time. The young people are now vaping at rates slightly higher than those who are starting smoking cigarettes. This is from the Canadian Medical Association Journal. And another one, and this is very recent, this is October of 2017. It's a very large study that shows that those who start vaping are significantly more likely to then move on to smoking tobacco. So in other words, young people are using it at the same or higher rates than smokers, or higher rates than tobacco, and they're much more likely to go to tobacco if they start vaping. So how does that fit with your assumption that, or your assertion that vaping has no part in this legislation?
Well, first of all, vaping has not been legislated yet in Canada, but it has been, the UK has 10 years on us and more. We should be looking to the United Kingdom and their program and templates, which has proven to be successful. And you stated your report was from October 2016, if I'm not mistaken. Pardon me? 2017. Well, we just had a new review and by Public Health England in a country that has actually applied the vaping regulations and with a liberal, open-minded approach. And they say the evidence does not support the concern that e-cigarettes are a gateway into smoking among young people.
Okay,
so,
I understand that, but since we're drafting laws in Canada, should we not be relying on the evidence that is collected in Canada?
If I may, you might be referring to a study authored by David Hammond from the University of Waterloo,
yes.
and his own, contrary to the headlines that were published, his own conclusion is that vaping, that there is a correlation but not a causation. They cannot prove a causation, and his leading hypothesis is that kids who try stuff. So all the data to date shows a displacement of smoking by vaping rather than a gateway effect. And the largest longitudinal study of 60,000 participants in England has shown a reverse effect. It completely dispelled that myth.
All right, thank you. Again, would there not be confounding factors between two countries? They're not the same society at all? Are there not?
There are similarities.
Confounding variables?
Yeah, thank you. There are similarities, and we do have additional information from University of Victoria supporting that hypothesis, and I'll be happy to follow up with a written submission to that effect.
But also, there are public health clinicians like yourself who support the theory that vaping is magnitude safer. They may not put a percentage to it, but magnitude safer.
All right, thank you very much.
Time's up. Now, team, we have a few minutes. We've got about 12 or 13 minutes left. I have one very short piece of committee business. Do you want to end now, or do you want to ask another quick round of, say, 3-minute questions?
We can end now. Are we okay if we end now?
We okay?
Yes.
All right. Well, that's good. Thank you very much to our guests. They've been very helpful, and you're helping us learn a lot. Now, on our committee business, we have. No, there's nothing. There's no reason to go on camera, I don't think. So, no. What's your? I'm going to turn the mic over to our clerk. You had a question you wanted to ask.
Yes, just quickly. After consultation with the Legislative Council and Legislative Clerks concerning the deadline for amendments on S5, I know we talked about this already, so I apologize for bringing this back to the table. But after consultation, so. What happens is that the legislative team needs some time to put the amendments package together before distributing it to all members of the committee, and for the committee to have enough time to look over the package. So in order to do that, what the legislative clerks are proposing is that the deadline for amendments be on Tuesday the 27th at noon. So that gives them time to put the package together and hopefully distribute it to all members by end of day on the 27th, so that members will have most of the day to review the amendments package on the 28th before we go to clause by clause. 27. Yes, at noon.
Just before the budget comes down.
Yes. Perfect timing. So
Ms. Glad.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to ask a question about the supplementary estimates when you mentioned the budget. Will we be able to have the minister get invited to come and talk about those by the deadline that we have?
Right. And we'll see what happens.
I would move that we invite the minister to discuss the supplementary estimates.
just given the timing with a number of allotted days that have already passed, pretty much the latest we could study the estimates before they are due back to the House would be the 19th of March.
Yep.
Okay. Now, are you, have you got your answers that you need?
So is that a motion to invite the minister for the next?
A motion to invite?
I moved a motion, yes.
Any debate on the motion to invite the minister? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
I just had one last note on the, just apologies again, one last note on the deadline for amendments. So given that this committee has adopted a motion in May of 2016 to give 48 hours deadline, so 48 hours before the clause-by-clause deadline for independent members, if we allow the committee members to have a shorter deadline, so on the 27th at noon, it does appear to be unfair to independent members. So I would suggest that the committee adopt a motion that all members of the House have the same deadline to submit amendments to S5, which would be the 27th at noon.
Okay.
Yep.
I know my schedule shows that our next meeting is on February the 26th at 12 noon, and that's a pharmacare meeting. Does everybody agree with that? And then we again meet on the second time that day at 3:30, and this should be our last double duty day, and that's more study on S5. So in the morning at noon hour we have the pharmacare, and then 3:30 we have S5, and then on the 28th Wednesday we do clause by clause from S5. Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair, for doing that, because that all happened when I wasn't here.
No problem. I did the best job I could, and they were all very cooperative. Just one question. I was really happy that the health minister decided to add some meetings with us. So I saw the schedule come out with the food guide, stakeholders. So we just need to schedule those at some point.
It's on our radar, but we don't have the schedule. But we'll do that when we reconvene. Ms. Finley, you had.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Mr. Edwards and others have made reference to the report issued by Public Health England just last week, and there was a request to get a copy of it. I have that if you would like it, and if you would like to distribute that to all the members of the committee.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much. Any other?
Sorry, may I ask, is that translated? Is that bilingual?
Not yet.
Okay, so can we translate it?
Of course.
This is Public Health England. That's very helpful. Thanks very much. Being no further business, I adjourn the meeting. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize you had copies of the budget. Okay, we can do the budget then. I didn't think you had copies of the budget. The last item is I need approval for the budget for S5, and you all have a copy of it. And
I move to approve the budget.
You will have a seconder? Seconder? All in favor of approving the budget? All opposed? Thank you very much. And have a happy Valentine's Day and a happy constituency week. Thanks very much. So there, we did some business.